welcome back to the Joy of Doodling. Last episode we talked about lines. Lines are the most basic building block of any doodle. Any drawing, really. A line is just a 1 to the 0 of the paper. The other main building block is shapes. Now, you could be thinking, simple geometric things like, circle, square. These things can build any, you can build a lot of stuff with very simple shapes. Geometric shapes. But a shape can be anything. That's a shape. It's not super geometric, but it's a shape. Right? Even a line is a shape, if you think about it. And shapes are lines. So, what can we take away from this? Before I forget, this is something that really resonated with me when I was, especially when you're drawing from a reference, or when you're drawing from like a still life. Let's say you're trying to draw a picture of, let's say this is your subject, right? Let's say you're working with that still life and you're drawing from in this case, I'm just making it up, but let's pretend like you're looking at a real vase with a flower on it, and this is your paper. Well, you can already see a lot of different shapes in here. You got that shape, the vase, right? You got this kind of shape for the table, and then you got some circles. You got some little U things, the petals. It's basically just that, surrounding the circle. But you can also look at it. Here, let me grab a different color. Let's say you want to get the inside of the in-between space of these two flowers. Well, this is a shape. Let me see if I can come up with a better example. I'll just try to describe that better. So, there's two different ways you can look at shapes. Or there's two different ways that you can think of shapes. You can think of the shape that an object creates, or that an object consists of, and you can think of the shape surrounding the object. So you can think of the shape of the negative space. So like, there's this is a shape right there. It's a funky shape, but that's still a shape. Negative spaces make shapes too. So here, it would be like this. Let's start a new page. Let's say you're drawing, I don't know, you're drawing nature. You're out in the woods and you want to draw leaves or sticks or, oh my goodness. All right, let's say you're out on a trail and you want to draw some trees, or you're at the park. So, whatever. Okay, you're looking at, imagine that these are all branches. Okay? Imagine these are branches of trees, right? Now what you could do is, I'm gonna draw this branch, and I'm gonna draw this branch, and this one, and, again, you're drawing what you're seeing. You're drawing what you're looking at. You're trying to envelop the object with the line by creating some shape, right? I'm not going for one-to-one here. This is all metaphorical. But let's say maybe you're having a hard time figuring out where this branch goes or what it connects to, you know. What you can do is you can look at the negative shapes, right? So now I'm going to try to draw this. Instead of drawing the object, I'm going to draw the shapes in between them. So I see one triangle there. That's easy. And then there's a there's a shape over here. There's this other triangle. And let's just do some broken lines for this guy. I'm going to simplify it a bit, but if you can pick up what I'm putting down here, you know, you're going to get a similar. The idea is to try to, you know, draw what you're seeing. Right? Obviously I'm not drawing the exact same thing, but I hope that makes a little bit of sense. You can even look at like a face. Let's people love drawing faces, right? I draw a lot of faces. So there's a lot of shapes going on here. There's the nose, there's the mouth, right? The ears. If you're drawing you know, there's a lot of sort of repeatable shapes on faces too, right? A lot of trapezoids, a lot of sort of triangles, stacked triangles. You know, again, I'm not here for an anatomy lesson. I'm sure you could find people much more eloquent than me to talk about that, but we're just going over some basics here. So let's try to tie this into some dudes. And we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Alright, so let's get to the dudes. We've got our roll for dude cards here. I'm just starting with the first 100 dudes to keep it simple. So what we're going to do is I'm going to draw 3 cards, and I will redraw the dudes, and hopefully implement some of the things we've been talking about when it comes to shapes. So, dude number 1, episode 62, a GIF fighter. He's an artificer with this great club with like a kind of gravity crystal. We've got a troll fighter. And for the last guy, we've got a gnoll paladin. This is actually one of my favorite dudes. I like the hand. This sort of Sauron hand on his forehead. Okay, so we got some gruff fellas for this episode. So, how about this? I'm going to start with... Well, I'm going to start with this guy, but let's do... I'm going to build up the shapes. The sort of, you know, the sketch shapes, not the finished shapes, but just the building blocks. And I'm going to do that with this marker, just because. So, with this lighter color, I'm just going to draw a big circle for his head. I'm going to draw a sort of almost trapezoidal shape for his whole body. And then we're going to put some little rectangles for his feet. I'll bring a line down here for his arm. He's got this, he's holding his little box. And now I'm going to do a circle and then a smaller circle And then I'm going to sort of connect, bring that down to the handle. His fist is just going to kind of go there, and then we'll figure it out. Easy peasy. I'm going to go ahead and block out these guys. And you know what? This guy, I'm going to kind of bring him up here. Sort of fill him in. This guy's head is a bit of this sort of pentagon shape. I'll give him some triangle ears. And he's got a big, chunky body. He's got these big arms. I'm going to talk about the drawing scale armor too. Scale armor is pretty fun. His arm down. Bippity boppity boo. He's got his wand. So for these, I'm just doing a lot of sort of incomplete shapes, I suppose. You know, again, it's a lot of trapezoids and sort of oblong, polygonal shapes, right? And I'm not drawing the whole shape. I'm just kind of drawing the outlines. So, you know, if you think about, there's one shape. We can even break down the arm into a couple other shapes. You've got the bicep. You've got the tricep on this side, and it kind of wraps around. And then I like to poke the little elbow out. Sometimes I'll draw just a little triangle for the elbow. And you can even throw in some lines. It's sort of like an anime nose. You know what I'm talking about? Little elbow. Boop. Okay. I'm gonna leave that guy there. Well, he's got his foot in the background. One more little foot. Alright. Now for the paladin. This guy's silhouette is pretty simple. So I'm gonna start with his body. When I draw gnolls, I tend to give them a sort of, you know, they're like dogs, so they have their ribs are a lot taller than they are wide. So here's the shape of his rib cage. His spine would be going back down there. Hips. Bring his knee up there with a little circle shape. Put his head down here. And again, it's this sort of like trapezoid, right? Very similar shapes, sort of inverted. I'll give him bigger ears. Pull him out of the silhouette a little bit. I'll give him another square. Here, I'll draw over this again just so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Overall shape. So we got this trapezoid-y thing, we got this rectangle-y thing, and then we got these triangle-y things. And his hand is down here. He's clutching on this sort of pendant, perhaps from his old teacher. And then he's holding on to this dagger. Arm back a bit. And so there's his knee. Very simple, just rectangle shape. Rectangle shape. Trapezoid-y thing. I'm just going to throw a circle for his knee anyway, just because it kind of helps me place it. And then he's sitting on his other foot. So there we go. We got a couple shapes in here. Now that we've got the building block shapes, we can look at the specifics of the line work on these characters. Alright, so how many shapes does this guy have? What's this guy got going on? Obviously, we've got these easy little cylindrical things. Alright, again, when I usually draw, especially when I get with markers, because you can't erase them, obviously, I like to start what's closest to you and then going further back. So you start from front to back. I usually do top to bottom, front to back. Or really front to back, top to bottom. Left to right. Just because I'm right-handed, you know. Anyway, so I'm going to add this one more shape for his sort of his maw. And you know what? I'm going to do something kind of fun here. I'm just going to throw in some blobs. I'm just going to throw in some little circly shapes. I'm not worried about shadows or lines or composition. I'm just going to kind of throw in some little blocky bumps. So you got his eyebrows, his cheeks, draw his teeth real quick, his nose, his lower lip, and then he's got these kind of like an angry little chin. And some ear blobs. So that looks like a mess, right? That looks almost completely unintelligible. But now that we've got these shapes built down, now we can sort of, if you think about where the light is coming from, for the sake of this, let's just say the light is kind of coming from the top right. That's what I usually do. But if you're consistent with your light source, your drawings will always feel grounded. Because the light's coming from this way, that means the darkest parts are going to be on this side. So we got the shadow crease of his eyes, or of his eyebrows, right? And I'm going to go ahead and draw a line here, draw a tooth there, because again, I want to draw the teeth first because they're in front and they're jutting out a bit. And then I'm going to pull the lip around. I'm going to stop the line right there, finish it out on the other side. And now I'm going to draw two lines very close together. There's that one, and then there's that one. Just to give him a little bit of a snarl. And I'm going to fill it in, not entirely. I'm just going to kind of make it a dotted white lines. Bring you your nose. I'll just keep it simple, some little dots. And so again, light's coming from this way. This is jutting out a bit, so I'm going to keep that line closed, but I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to do one of these. You see that? Connecting the two invisible shapes with some lines. Just that simple line. I'm going to bring it around here too, to the other side of this lump, and then connect it to his other eyebrow. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the top of his head. So, bump, bump, bam. I'm going to take a broken line here and just kind of do that. Just a little bit of dots. Give him his little angry eyeballs, and then his very defined cheekbones. Bring it back down to the lip, some little dotted lines, and his furrowed little chin. This guy's coming together pretty cool. Bring it down, back around. Give him his little ears. Just simple little oval shapes with a single line down the center. Now I believe he was wearing chainmail. I think it's supposed to be chainmail at least, but y'all might argue with me there. So I'm going to simplify the design of his weapon. I'm just going to draw this little cylindrical shape. A nice quick way to draw little cylinders like this is you draw the two outside lines, and then you draw sort of parentheses around it, you know, parentheses, and then without connecting the lines, you just draw one line there. Easy peasy. Done. Look at that. So I'm going to do that a couple more times for this guy. Boop, boop, boop. It's not perfect, but gets the job done. So now for the club, I'm going to come around. I'm going to add some little notches in it. If you keep the overall silhouette of a shape, you can do whatever you want to the boundaries, and it still reads like the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So you can throw in just a little bit of notches and little squiggles, lines. You don't have to think too hard about it. You can just kind of let your hand do the thinking and just go from there. Give him his little hand. side of his glove, and then his little elbow picking out. I'm gonna come back down around here and start with the hand because it is in the front of everything. I'm gonna draw another one of these sort of cylindrical shapes for his wrist, and then I'm just gonna come in and draw his little fingers. Easy peasy, super simple hand. And now I'll draw his little rectangle. Bada bing. And then it's got this little floating crystal in it, which like powers his gravity great club, I guess. Give him some bumpy little chainmail, hood. Got some straps. And then tricep, delt, bicep, easy. Look at that. Delt, upper arm. Close enough. Give him his little moobies. And then I'm gonna bring the belt up. The belt is like around his waist, above his hips. So it's kind of higher up. Boop. Alright, so now he's got his chainmail. Rectangle boots. Easy peasy. I'm gonna call him there. Done. I think his face definitely came out better than everything else. But I'm not trying to win any awards here. You know? On to the troll. Okay, for the troll fighter, I actually really like drawing scale mail. And it's super easy. You know what? For the sake of brevity, I'm gonna draw this guy super quickly and focus mostly on the scale mail. I'll use a different color. Just for clarity. So I'm gonna block out the shapes of the armor. He's got this sort of piece on his back. He's got this big one on his shoulder. They're all sort of nailed into his skin. Go ahead and draw those real quick. He's got a couple loose scales there too. And then he's got this sort of plate on his front, on his chest, and then another wrapping around his forearm. So now that we got the main sort of plates blocked out, what I'm going to do is draw a sort of diagonal checkerboard or grid lines. When I mean diagonal, like diagonal to the X and Y axis would be. So if I splayed this piece out, you know, this is the top there. You're not going to draw it like this, right? Because then everything kind of lines up on top of itself. So what you want to do is draw it diagonally, or at least draw the grid lines diagonally. So then when you're drawing the scale, look at that. I don't even need to do anything. They're already right there. So start there. It's going to sort of follow this line and then curve around. Do the same thing here. Curve it around the back. Just go ahead and draw all these lines. It doesn't have to be exact. So now that we have these sort of grid lines, let's start drawing in some scales. I kind of go all over the place. You know, I talk a lot about going front to back, top to bottom. But with scale armor, sometimes I kind of start in the middle, because it's usually easier, like, when I get up to the top, unless I really know, unless it's connected to like a, I don't know, some type of cloth or another piece of metal on top, I never really know how to close it out until I've already drawn a couple scales. So sometimes I'll kind of start in the middle and work my way around. So I'm gonna do that here. I'm gonna start, instead of starting all the way at the top, I'm just gonna kind of start on this bottom row of the top row, right? So now that I've got that, again, our light source is coming down from here, so really easy way to really elevate these scales here, because I'm just tracing these pink lines, right? Look at that, it's the exact same. Like, why didn't you just draw that with the black? Well, adding that little variation, instead of doing this, if I do this every time and try to get them to sort of line up instead of perfectly lining up, they look like individual little pieces instead of just hatching. And you can take that a step further by adding some shadows. So again, light's coming from up here. These scales on the top are the closest, and they're in front of everything. So I'm just going to throw in little shadows from the top one onto the one underneath it. In just these little crannies, these little nooks and crannies. And as you sort of get closer to on the other edge of the contour, you can make the shadows a lot thicker versus that one, that only has a little bit of shadow. So I'll do the same thing down here. I'm going to redraw the scales quickly, loosely, and I'm going to sort of block them back in to this patch. And then I'm going to make the shadows closer to his hand a lot darker. And then the shadows up here a little bit lighter. And then they sort of increase in size as they wrap around his forearm. Right? And then for the top here, because it's the scales are going this direction now instead of this direction. So because of that, you're not going to see as many of the nooks and crannies. So I'm actually going to do some lighter lines that don't fully touch so that it looks like it's more in the light. And then for the edges, I'm just going to kind of do this. Boop. Like the scales are kind of peeking out. Maybe I'll throw in a little bit of shadows while it curves around. And then I would do, for this one, it would be a lot of shadows. And you can think of all these, you've got the shape. Again, I'm trying to see if I can get people to think about shapes differently. It's not just the shapes that you see, it's also the shapes that you don't see. Alright, time for the paladin. I definitely want to draw this guy because I like him. While I'm here, I can do a quick little dog nose tutorial. So we've got the two sort of rectangle dudes, right? Bring this around, unbroken line, swirl, swirl. And then you can do a sort of dotted line. That's a dog nose. Let's do that again. Gonna come in from the center, come around, swirl, come around, swirl, boop, 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 boop. Right? Come around, swirl, come around, swirl, boop, 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 dot, dot. Dog nose. I'm gonna give him some big ol' scruffy whiskers. And then bada bing, bada bam. I'm gonna darken the shadows to imply where his eyes would be. Triangle, scruffy triangle with another triangle inside it to create the ear. Boop. So his knees coming out front. And then I don't remember if I talked about like cloth wraps last episode, but you can think of it similarly to the scales here, except they're a lot easier to draw because they don't have to be as measured. So I'm just going to throw in some random lines and then turn them into these little jagged trapezoids to make it look like his leg is wrapped. Some little triangle toes. I'm not even gonna finish those lines. I'm just gonna hold in his little pendant. And give him a little mohawk of sorts. So again, we've got the main base shape, and then we've got the actual shape, which is just kind of like scraggly, hairy cheeks. But that base shape is always going to be there. For his dagger, rectangle, rectangle, circle, triangle, done, squiggly trapezoids. You know, I could probably do a whole episode on just clothes and cloth. If you are an artist and you don't enjoy drawing tapestry or cloth, I don't understand you. I'm mostly joking, but bada bing. I'll save talking about clothes and cloth for a different episode, but you will find, if you're drawing blankets or clothes or whatever, there's a lot of shapes that you find in the folds of cloth and clothes and tapestry. A lot of shapes. Keep an eye out for them. I'll see y'all next time. Bye!